What is The Division 2? Now, I am doing this video for a rather weird reason. Recently, one of the largest streamers and content creators on the platform actually started streaming Division 2. They are returned to the game. It is something they covered a long time ago, and this has actually brought about a lot of attention towards Division 2, and it had about 10,000 people asking, what is Division 2? So, as someone that's got like 13,000 hours in this game, I'm effectively, it's called SHD, but I'm effectively level 15,862. I wanted to give my take on what the Division 2 is, and I'm then going to post it in that person's Discord. Just to stop guessing, this person I'm referring to is Pirate Software, and no, I don't care about the current drama going on around him. The only part of this that I care about is, quite frankly, he is one of the largest content creators on the platform at the moment. YouTube, Twitch, etc, etc. His average viewership is like 13,000 people. This had a lot of people looking at the Division 2. This is potentially a huge influx of players to the game I love. That's all I care about. So I'm just going to be a little parasite on this situation and leech off of it, and hopefully do my best in describing what Division 2 is, so that potentially as well, if you come across this video, this will hopefully answer a fair few questions. I also have a pretty active viewership as well, or community within the Division 2, so if you do have any further questions, I'm pretty sure myself or someone else can answer them in the comments below. That's literally it. So, back on topic. What is the Division 2? The Division 2 is a third-person looter shooter at its core. It has a heavy push towards the mechanic of building, utilizing different pieces or items, gear, etc. that give different bonuses, set bonuses, attributes, sub-attributes, as well as talents that will help define your build as to what it is you are wanting to do in the game. As with most games of this type, there are three sort of build categories that you can go into, and that's support, including healer. I'm aware some people like to categorize healer and support something different. DPS, as well as tanking. You can manage all of these in this game. We have ARs, SMGs, LMGs, rifles, snipers, although in Division 2 they're referred to as MMRs, marksman rifle, shotguns, and of course pistols. The game overall is heavily orientated towards the combat or gunfights, which is going to be the key feature that may or may not draw you to the game itself, as to whether this style of gameplay, this style of combat is something that you are interested or would enjoy. The overall core of the combat actually leans more towards a cover-to-cover shooter, utilizing the environment as your main source of defense regardless. Although you can build tank builds, the vast majority of the combat for most players will revolve around sticking in or around cover and utilizing that, like I said, as your primary form of defense. You can opt in for a more run and gun playstyle, though these can be a little bit tricky, and more often than not you can find yourself becoming frustrated because you are then out of position and you will get surrounded. The enemies actively try and always do a 360-degree attack just to mess with you. Now, in terms of overall content, there is actually a surprisingly large amount that you can do in this game, despite the fact that one of the most common complaints I see is that the end game is lacking, or there just isn't an end game. This is kind of untrue, but at the same time it's also kind of true. The main issue is really that the end game of the Division 2 is essentially whatever it is you want it to be. If you are the sort of person that just wants to do the story, farm up 1 or 2 builds, do the raids, and then call it quits, you will find the end game very lackluster. If you're the sort of person that will make all 4 characters and deck out all 4 characters, constantly adapt and change builds with the seasons, with the modifiers, constantly try and find new and wacky ways to enjoy the game and have fun. Effectively, the end game is endless. Now, the main map is what you're seeing on screen here. This is DC, and from what I understand, it is pretty close to the actual size and like near enough a one-to-one copy of DC in real life. It's just a bit more apocalyptic. Now, within DC, we have what we call the 5 strongholds. These are probably more akin to what most people would refer to as a dungeon if you're an RPG or a MMO player. We have Tidal Basin, Roosevelt Island, Capitol Hill, or Capitol Building, District Union Arena, as well as Manning National Zoo. These are the 5 strongholds. Now, these are denoted by these lovely, lovely icons, like a bit different, and it does say stronghold. But the main thing that makes them different is if we actually go into their setting, into their difficulty, we have legendary difficulty. These are very difficult. For our normal missions, which are denoted as such, if we go into their difficulty, there is no legendary. These are a very, very serious challenge. Some people just actively avoid them just because they can't do them. They are very hard. You can match make for these. On top of that, we do have what is kind of considered a mini raid, and it is called Paradise Lost Incursion. This is all for 4 people. The main game is solo up to 4 players, including Paradise Lost, although I will suggest going into Paradise Lost with 4 people, simply because although the rest of the game will scale 1 player, 2 player, 3 player, 4 player, Paradise Lost is always scaled to 4 player with a little bit extra sprinkled on top, so you will struggle. It is designed to be hard. So, but this is like a little bit of a raid. It's not quite a raid. 4 player, nowhere near as long. You can probably get through it with a good team in like 10 minutes. I'm talking like a really good team here. But there's a lot of mechanics involved. It's not just run through and shoot stuff. There's actually a fair few mechanics. On top of that, there are 2 actual raids. And obviously they are denoted by the fact that they are called raid. First one is Operation Iron Horse. Well, I suppose I'd say the second one is Operation Iron Horse. The first one is the Operation Dark Hours. These are your 2 raids. They do have, you could argue, exclusive loot. Operation Iron Horse is probably the only one that actually now has exclusive loot, although there is still items that will drop mainly from here. And for those people that are into PvP, there are areas called Dark Zone. You have DZ West, DZ South, and DZ East. These are kind of like an extraction shooter. Think Tarkov. It's PvEVP, or however it is defined. There are landmarks within these which are NPC controlled areas that you can go into and fight, but there are also players running around here that will kill you and take your loot. Now, they can't take anything of your build or your items that are saved with on your character, but any items that you typically pick up in this area will go into a separate stash until you extract it at one of the extractions. If you are killed before you are able to extract the items that you got in here during your game session, those items will drop on the ground and people can take them. On top of that, there are certain little add-on areas such as the Pentagon, Coney Island. We also have the Pentago, Fairview Power Plant, which we just mostly just refer to as Countdown. This is a very good area for farming. We have Kenley College, which is a nice little sort of sub-side area. And as we also have Summit, which is sort of like just 100 floors of pure chaos. Can get a bit boring, but some people might like it. We also have a Descent, which is a rogue-like mode, which I personally absolutely detest, but some people really enjoy it. After that, we actually have 2 expansions. The first expansion is New York. Not as big, it's about 4 areas. There's a good few missions here that you can sink your teeth into. There's no raids, there's no dungeons or anything, but there's a good few missions in here that you can sink your teeth into. There's 5 missions in total, 1 per each area, and then there's like the final boss thing. You can go travel and explore Liberty Island. And then recently, what's got a lot of people back into the game or looking at the game again is the Brooklyn DLC, which you again can see here. It is a smaller area. It is a pretty cheap DLC. It's like £12 for me. That's like $15 or €15. So it is a small DLC. And to be perfectly frank, there is also quite a lot more. I'm trying to be enticing but also vague enough so that I don't really spoil anything, such as there is a conflict mode. For those of you that don't want to do the whole PvEVP extraction shooter type thing in the Dark Zone, there is conflict, which is an instance-based team PvP. So there'll be 4 people on one side, 4 people on another. You get to kind of choose or vote on a map, and you get to go in and then 4v4 and beat each other up, and there's basically no consequences for losing other than you might get teabagged. That's really about it. Now, like I said at the start of the video, depending on your wants for the end game, you can actually do some pretty interesting things. In total, you are able to make 4 characters, and each character that you make is able to hold 16 separate loadouts, which means you can have 16 different builds per character. This potentially could mean a lot of farming and a lot of replayability, depending if you want to utilize all of them. Now, some people are probably right now thinking, oh, what do I want 4 characters for with 16 builds to do the exact same thing on repeat? Well, you could do what I do, and this is just an idea, and it's just to sort of show what I mean about the end game. So right now I am on character 1, and for me character 1 is my solo character. So all of my builds, which again there are 16 of, I need to sort out the names, but these builds are all designed for me to function solo. These are all typically a DPS build with some survivability mechanic, not always taking the priority, the DPS being the main priority. So again, these are just solo builds. They're not really intended to go into group, either due to scaling or how I have them particularly set up for one reason or another. Now, this is character 2. This character is actually intended for multiplayer, whether it be just a 2-man, 3-man or 4-man, and I have setups that are designed to work regardless of difficulty. So from here, I do have DPS builds in case I am required to be the DPS. Again, DPS. A healer, a one-shot build, and a generalistic buff build, another buffing build, CC build, a tank build, a debuff build, a DPS build, another DPS build, the Necromancer build, a very, very strange CC build, the normal CC build, a skill build that acts as a healer, and a build that I'm actually still testing out. And then my third character is actually designed for raids, depending on what it is I am doing. So I do have DPS builds, I have a healer, I have a jammer build, I have the stagger tank build, I have a red FI build. I'm aware some of this probably means nothing to you. I have the alternative healer, I have a key tank build, an oxy build, a standard FI, standard CC, I've got a Hasbro build, a Coyote striker build, the Hasbro CC build, a Bloody Knuckles build, yet another healer. And this character is designed realistically to be able to get more competent, or at least play alongside more competent, as well as help newer players get through both the raids as well as the incursion. So hopefully that defines what the Division 2 is and roughly what you could get in or out of this game. Now, I don't want to go too heavy into detail, like I said, but obviously with every game, especially because this game is published by Ubisoft, it does kind of have a bad rap, and it's a rap that I don't feel that it completely deserves. I feel like it should be specified to just Ubisoft, but that's just me. Now, that being said, there are things within this game that can get frustrating. I'm sure many of us have heard complaints such as the random disconnects. Although they are not 100% solved, I would argue they are definitely 99% solved. There are also complaints that the enemies are actually too spongy. Well, I'm afraid to say that is probably from people that don't actually have good or workable builds. You have seen me playing on the hardest difficulty throughout this video, and nothing really lives past either one shot on builds that are designed to kill them in one shot, or if I am using an AR where it does take multiple bullets, it really didn't take that many bullets at all. Most things die in under a second. They're not that spongy, I promise you. Even when you start playing on legendary difficulty, if you have the correct builds for it, things die just as quick. Now, if you're still not sold, I perfectly understand. If you are on Xbox, I do believe this game comes up on Game Pass quite often. If I don't know if it's even a permanent feature. I'm not on Xbox. I don't utilize Game Pass. I don't know how it works. So you Xbox players will have to let me know. But you can get the game through Game Pass and give it a try. If you are on PC, and specifically if you utilize things like Steam, I have seen it on occasion have like a free weekend, or at minimum it will still cost, but on things like the Steam summer sale or the autumn sale or Christmas sale, whatever's going on, one of Steam's sales, you can typically buy the base game for the Division 2, which will give you a huge chunk of content for around $5 typically. And from there you can decide whether you like it and wish to invest into the DLCs. Sadly, for those of you on PlayStation, I haven't got a clue. I'm sorry. So yeah, that is just about going to cover it. Hopefully I've answered most of the questions that you potentially would have regarding what the Division 2 is, whether you should invest into it. That is mostly going to be entirely up to you. I don't want to tell you what to think or feel. I've just done my best to give hopefully a pretty objective description of the game, though if you do have any further questions, pop them in the comments. Myself or someone else will most likely get back to you pretty soon. Again, couldn't care less about the whole drama going on with Pirate Software at the moment. This is more just the fact that a very influential person has started playing or is returned to playing a game that I actively love, and I foresee this potentially being a massive boon for the Division 2 community. That's all I care about. So yeah, that is going to be it for this video. Have fun, good luck, don't die. It's bad for the health.